you voted before?
I think this should be my first time, although I have not been putting myself to vote because I have not been seeing any need for it. But this time, I have seen the need and the interest. That is why I took the bold step to achieve this, so that I can take back this nation. So that when I'm talking tomorrow and tell that I appoint the leader, I know that I did that myself too.
I need to change in Nigeria. So I have to go from very far. It's like from my house to my polling unit is like over, let me say, 16 kilometers. But I want to vote for change.
I'm walking to my polling unit to vote.
Okay, how far is your polling unit from where you live?
It's a little bit far, but not that far. I'm ready to make it.
Okay, how many minutes have you been walking?
I've walked up to 20 minutes.
Are you already determined?
Of course, I am.
Well, Millicent probably meant Eastern region.
The old Eastern
South region. Rivers.
Okay.
That was actually Rivers.
But now go to the real Southeast. According to what we've had in recent time to Anambra State, some situation report from Nigerians.
The situation here is simply that the INEC arrived quite on time, but they are not here with the BVAS machine. All the sensitive materials are readily on ground, but the BVAS machine is not here. So we felt that there is an attempt to sabotage the effort of people who came out to vote, because without the BVAS machine, any vote is void. So we felt there is actually an attempt. If you look at the other side, you see that it's exactly the same situation. So INEC should do something to provide the BVAS machine so that people could start voting.
I have just been informed that there is no reverse machine here. In a couple of units I visited this morning, they either don't have the reverse equally or they don't have the charger, which is not proving a problem now, but later in the day it could. So we tried to relay back to the office. That's INEC. But if you see me, or you hear me asking to get the exact number of this place so that we could actually give a real-time report so that if there's any remedy, they'll start working towards it.
All right, situation report from several areas there, Ekiti, Lagos, Anambra, and then, of course, other places that we had in the course of the day. Quite a lot happening. It's, as always with elections like this, it's a mixed bag.
And it's quite a huge logistics that INEC has to deal with. Too many moving parts, if you ask me.
Actually,
Literally
moving parts.
Too many moving parts at the same time. I said about 10 minutes before we came on air, someone in Okwebi here in Lagos was telling us that even as at that time, their electoral officers hadn't arrived. Well, the reason I wasn't able to vote was because as at the time I got to the polling unit, the electoral officers hadn't arrived. So, well, they got there at about 9:20 something, because I was saying, if I don't see them, I'm just going to come to work. Next thing, about 9:20, 9:22 or thereabout, they got there. As at about 9:42 when I left, they were still setting up.
Indeed.
So that's about 30 minutes. And I don't know what's going to happen with, because there's a rule we all know. The last person at 2:30 will be able to vote on the condition, and I don't know if that's part of the guideline, on the condition that voting started as and when it was supposed to start. Now, for those whose voting hasn't started at 12 o'clock, will they also still close at 2 p.m.?
What happens?
That's a question that maybe INEC will be able to speak to eventually.
Indeed. It's always difficult at this point in time. I mean, this is a big country with different kinds of challenges, if you like, in different parts. One is not holding brief, of course, for INEC. And the voters, of course, want to exercise their franchise. That's one thing that seems to cut across all the reports that we've been receiving. I don't know if while we are waiting, because I know that there's some reports that we're waiting for from our correspondents right across the country. Perhaps if we can now go to a river state where the governor, Nyesom Wike, of course, also has his views about what has happened thus far in the electoral process today. He's disappointed that, according to him, the Beavers have not functioned optimally. Let's listen.
I'm highly disappointed. We're all told that INEC had expressed confidence that they are ready for the election, that the Beavers are working. They can set the crowd here. I don't believe that most people were allowed to vote with the slow working of the Beavers, because I stayed over 25 minutes there, and yet I couldn't vote, and I was told to go and come back. Before that, and they would have rectified the Beavers. So I'm highly disappointed. Well, if a number of people have been disenfranchised, I mean, what do you expect? People will lose their temper, and anything could happen. And that's why we say that INEC ought to be fully ready before letting the public know that, they're completely ready, and that they believe that Nigerians will be happy with their preparation. But there's no intuition for it at all.
All right, Governor Nyesom Wike of River State expressing some level of disappointment in the functions of the Beavers. Now, I was saying before we went to Governor Wike there that it does appear that it's a mixed bag, like we've had in previous elections. He's complaining about the functions of the Beavers. Earlier, I remember listening to Dele Omoyeni in Agulu in Anambra saying that, look, yeah, we've got no problems at all. Everybody's been accredited. Everybody's
same thing.
But then on the other side of Anambra, which we also took, they had Beavers problems.
So I mean, again, it tends to be a mixed bag. And as I was trying to point out earlier, there's room for some level of flexibility in all of this, bearing in mind all the logistics. We just need to know what it is that is being done, what is being planned. You heard Governor Wike there saying he was asked to go and come back. So that's to give the officers some time to fix whatever it was that was wrong with
That's also hoping
Beavers.
that 2:30 window is there from now till 2:30 for that to happen.
How do we ascertain that the Governor Wike's polling unit wasn't moved elsewhere without his knowledge? But
again, I mean, they'll tell him. Now, I understand that Linda Hiwe is on standby at the International Conference Center, which is the National Collation Center, and where, of course, we have been receiving briefings from the Independent National Electoral Commission from. So, Linda, what can you tell us about the status at this point?
We probably will come to Linda shortly.
We'll come to Linda in a moment.
But just a quick, update. Watching the vote findings, they did a quick sort of by geopolitical zones of what when INEC got to where. And according to them, they're saying that in the southeast, it was about 6%. INEC arrival was around 7:30. The number of INEC officials that got there. On the other hand, for places like Northwest, I believe, by 7:30 a.m., INEC officials had arrived 27% of the polling units across the country, as at 7:30 a.m. today.
27, that's just a bit under 1/3 of the number.
Which is also unfortunate because over the years, the highest percentage of voters of any voter register we ever had hadn't gone beyond 35%.
Indeed.
You know, even from INEC's time, I really am looking forward to it.
As well as I
really am looking forward to it. And then, there's a very, very interesting conversation that started with our colleagues in Abuja earlier in the day. We're talking about the fact that many of us probably home now, probably have gone out to vote, probably just right now at the polling units waiting. Do we even know the job description of the people we want to give jobs to? It's a lot of focus on the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I know, Ladi, I recall that you would know this, but it's interesting that many people don't pay attention to the fact that the federal government, according to Bernard Kabweze, has 941 ministries, departments, and agencies. This figure was as at 2 years ago. I don't know if it's increased.
If it's increased the number, because...
And there are more than 500 corporations of the federal government. Who controls them all? One constituency, Federal Republic of Nigeria. But with supervisory oversight by those people in the National Assembly. How many are there in it?
The legislature.
I always have a
106,
360 in the House, 109 in the Senate.
Those guys are the ones who have oversights, right, on all of this. More than, okay, I did the calc, 1,484 ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations of the federal government. And one person is responsible for ensuring that they all work. And that's the guy that we all flog when the job doesn't get done. But what happens to those other guys? Okay, on the average, each of these agencies have one head and maybe board members, 5, 1,484 multiplied by 5. I've not done that calculation. But just imagine that's the number of people that run the federal government, and we employ someone to take charge of all of that. Do we know that? And guess what the Constitution says his qualification is?
Well, SSC.
SSC. Attempted, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for a long time I was saying SSC until I was corrected that is just the attempt.
Just attempt. So even if you have F9 parallel, as we say back in time, that's the guy.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, there is nothing wrong with it. Only how many small businesses employ anyone who just run the marketing with attempted school certs? And how much more a federal republic as Nigeria? I don't know.
Perhaps at this stage, because I can see him in our Abuja studios, I don't know if we can talk to him. Honorable West Idahosa is in our Abuja studios. Honorable Idahosa is a former member of the National Assembly. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Honorable Idahosa, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. What's been your experience like in Abuja? Did you vote? That should be my first question.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here. I didn't vote because I had a prior engagement with the studio, and that would mean that I have to keep my obligation. So I stayed back in Abuja for this assignment.
Indeed, and we thank you so much for that. Perhaps give us an idea, a sense. We're getting reports from across the country, and it's a mixed bag. Sometimes within the same state, there are different sides of the same coin. Some say, look, the beavers are working excellently. In another part of the state, well, yeah, we're having problems with the same machine. And then in other places, real electoral materials and officials arriving late or haven't arrived in some instances. Is this, par for the course? We've gone through 6 circles already. This is the 7th under this dispensation. This is expected, right? Am I right to say that?
Yeah, you're correct. Ideally, we ought to be making progress. But one good news is that from reports reaching us, the accreditation process itself seems to be quite fast. And that would mean that the technology deployed may be in order. The only snag there is that in some areas, the BVAS itself is either faulty or is not available. But either way, I think the law has taken care of that. And the position of the law is very clear. Where that does not get rectified before 2:30 p.m. today, the automatic position of the law is that that election should be repeated within 24 hours from today. So I'm not too sure that those who are suffering the BVAS setback now should lose hope yet. I do believe that there will be rectification mode going on now. But if they do not rectify before 2:30, the provision of the law should be obliged and people should be given the opportunity to cast their vote. by repeating the exercise within 24 hours.
Well, there's a concern we raised earlier. I don't know, I hope you were able to catch that one as well. The fact that in a number of places, maybe few, depending on where the location is, a number of places, the officials, INEC officials aren't there at the time. Even maybe some of them haven't even arrived now. Some arrived quite late, some arrived an hour, 2 hours after schedule that they were supposed to be there. Yet, according to INEC guidelines, voting is supposed to terminate at 2 p.m., but those who are on the line before 2 p.m. should be able to cast their vote. Do you see a chance or a situation where INEC adjusts for the hours that they lost, or you think everyone who still, that the 2 p.m. termination time should still be maintained?
Well, I'm not too sure that is equitable in the circumstances. I think INEC has some powers to ensure that this exercise reflects its own vision and its mission for the Nigerian people, which is to conduct a credible, fair, transparent, and equitable election for the Nigerian people to elect its leaders for the next 4 years. So if a machine provided by INEC is unable to function within the voting period designated by INEC in its voting manual or in its guidelines as proposed in 2022, you cannot punish the voters for that. I think the equitable thing would be to get the proper machines and repeat the exercise the next day. And now, if, of course, there's been some lateness in getting the situation corrected, I also do think that INEC has some inherent powers to extend the voting to ensure that those who are on the line or who are available as at the time that the correction was made get the chance to vote. Because to say that by 2:30 or thereabout, according to their guidelines, the security officer should queue behind the last man and then nobody else should be allowed to be on the queue to vote is massive disenfranchisement in an area where by 12 o'clock, voting has not started. Ideally, the exercise ought to pick up by 8:30 a.m. So if an area has lost about 4 hours, not to a fault of theirs, due to the intervention of a third force, it will be difficult to justify disallowing those persons to exercise their civic responsibility, in my view.
Also, as you say that, I understand that we are getting in pictures at this point of some notable personalities voting. We start off with former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo is there. He is. Yeah, we have former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Of course, we all remember that former President Obasanjo was Nigeria's first president under this dispensation, having been elected in 1999 and then re-elected in 2003. I also understand that we have some visuals of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, that was the immediate predecessor of the current president, Muhammad Buhari. There he is, arriving at his polling station in Bayelsa State. And now you have a former transport minister, presidential aspirant at some point, and former governor of River State, Rotimi Chibike Amechi, there also preparing to exercise his franchise. In Oyo State, the current governor, Seyi Makinde, is also exercising his franchise. Large crowd accompanying him there. We'll talk about that a little bit later. In Bayelsa State, Governor Duoye Diri is also exercising his franchise. Perhaps we are able to listen to Governor Diri, having cast his vote earlier, to get his first impressions of what's happening. Governor Diri.
Delayed voting here for about 2 hours, and I'm informed that it's as a result of logistics problems. My plea is that they will equally extend the time that has already been wasted, about 2 hours that has already been wasted. That's my plea. Then insecurity, yes, there's so much that has been done in terms of security by INEC, and we have not had any major security breach. We are collating the security reports, so to speak, and we'll deal with them accordingly to ensure that everybody is allowed to cast their votes peacefully. Bimodal voting and accreditation system is one innovation that everybody's applauding.